श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः। We continue with the exposition of the first sutra of the Daya Prakarana. I will read the sutra first. புறம்புண்டான அடைய வாசனையோடே விடுகையும் எம்பெருமானையே தஞ்சமென் வெப்பத்துகையும் பேரு தப்பாரென்னு துணிந்திருக்கையும் பேத்துக்கு துவரிக்கையும் இருக்கும் நாள் உகந்தருளிகளிலே பிரவணனாய் குணானுபவ கைங்கரியங்களிலே போது போக்காகையும் இப்படி இருக்கும் ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்கள் ஏத்தமறிந்து கனிந்திருக்கையும் திருமந்திரத்திலும் துவயத்திலும் நியதனாயும் ஆச்சாரிய பிரேமம் கனத்திருக்கையும் ஆச்சாரியன் பக்கலினும் எம்பெருமான் பக்கலினும் கிருதஜனாய் போருகையும் ஞானமும் விரக்தியும் சாந்தியும் உடையனாயிருக்கும் பரமசாத்விகனோடே சகவாசம் பண்ணுகையும் வைஷ்ணவாரிகாரிக்கு அவசியாபேட்சிதம். So Villalokacharya succinctly, both succinctly as well as elaborately, summarizes the qualities that a Sri Vaishnava has to possess. And each of these are very important. None of them can be given up. None of them can be discounted, because each of these stress upon one particular aspect. So among them we have discussed 3 points. Purambundana pattukkalai adaya vasanayode vidugayum. That means a person who is a true Sri Vaishnava has to give up all the attachments towards his relatives as well as external objects. So that's why it has been mentioned as Pitaram Mataram Dara Nityaripadiye Bahya Vishaya Sangangalayudeya Maruvallidadapadi Savasanayode Vidahai. So I have explained this in sufficient detail. Along with their vasanas. Vasana means, as I mentioned earlier, I may have physically given up something, but mentally I might crave to have that. So along with the mental cravings, one has to give up the urge to enjoy objects, external objects of pleasure, and also give up all attachments towards his relatives, including parents, etc. That doesn't mean that he should not have respect towards them or affection towards them. He can have respect, he can have affection, but it should not be in the form of a bandha. It should not bind him in any manner. Because when you say Pitaram, Mataram, Dharam, Putran, Bandhun, Sakhin, Guru, etc. So should he not have respect for his father and mother? Should he not take care of them when they are old? All these things have to be done. So many a times what happens in the garb of such words, such statements, some people take it as an advantage and say, no, everything has to be given up, and they will indulge in something else. But just to say, just like they say, devil quoting the scriptures, some people will quote these statements and substantiate their incorrect behaviors, which is not correct. That's why I said all the affection and the respect towards our elders, etc., should be there, but it should not be in a way that becomes binding on the Jivatma. It should not bind him to samsara. Yam Berumanaye Tattanjamin Nipattuhayum. So the Supreme Lord alone is our protector and not anybody else. This has been explained in sufficient detail. Then third aspect is Per Tapparinne Tunindirikayum Upaya Palguttum Uddeshya Dullabhattum Sakala Dosha Bhuyastum Udiya Havarum Adiya Havarum Shankatremaminnike Phalantapamal Siddhikum Yennep Vishwasiddhirikai. This also has been explained in detail. How the refuge in the Supreme Lord is most difficult to get. We have to understand the difficulty in having the Lord as our sole refuge. This is the first aspect. Then we have to have the Supreme Lord himself as the Upaya, not only Upaya or the entity to be attained. He is also the means. He is both the end and the means. That we have to understand and realize. Not only understand, realize. There is a lot of difference between understanding and realizing. And having done that, he should have total confidence that he will attain the Supreme Lord at any cost in due course. But the next characteristic is So a person, so now I have been assured of moksha. So let it come after 100 births or 150 births, I don't care, because I want to enjoy life. Because in the beginning, as far as ordinary persons are concerned, what is the definition of this body? The definition given in the Shastras that are aimed at ordinary persons is Atmanaha Sukha Dukkha Bhogayatanam Shariram. The Jivatma cannot experience any happiness or misery without association with a body. So, unless he has an association with a body, he cannot experience neither sukha, that is happiness, nor misery. But ordinary human beings think that they go on experiencing happiness only as far as this body is concerned. That is well evident in people all over the world, irrespective of their nationality, age, etc., who keep on enjoying the vices like drinking, smoking, etc., etc. Or even, for example, non-sattvic food, which gives them a great sense of false happiness. Because I understand that when people drink or have alcoholic substances, consume alcoholic substances, it gives them what they call as a high or some sort of bliss. But as soon as the effect of that reduces, they will be given to what is called as melancholy, to put it in a very British term. That is, they go into deep depression and they yearn for more and more of that. So this is not real happiness, it's actually what we call as sukha bhasa. It looks like happiness, but it is not happiness. Therefore, such things have to be given up by all means. Apart from that, why I mentioned this was, people think that they should live long, they should be fit, etc. But ordinary people do so with the sole aim of enjoying the pleasures of, or enjoying the essential pleasures of life. So even a Sharanagata or a person, a Prapanna, who has taken refuge in the Lord might think, of course I have taken refuge, so let me enjoy the pleasures of life. What is there? How does it make a difference? Anyway, to put it in a very crude term, my seat in Vaikuntha is reserved. And many a times in the discourses given by Sri Vaishnava scholars, they glorify people who have committed crimes or who commit sins and say that God will protect all of them. It is not true. It is done with the opinion of highlighting the greatness of the grace of the Lord, because God will accept a person even if he has committed some crimes, provided he becomes a true Prapanna or true Sharanagata. But Ramanujacharya specifically mentions in the Sri Bhashya that it is totally not incorrect. Because if it is said that the Lord protects even those who have committed all sorts of crimes, then what is the need of prohibiting these crimes? So crimes should never be glorified. They are to be avoided at all costs. Crime to glorify the greatness of the grace of the Supreme Lord, where he will actually protect even persons who have committed crimes. In such cases, there are some exemptions, because even in Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned as apichet suduracharaha bhajate mam ananya bhag. Suppose there is a great devotee who always thinks about God, but he is given to some bad habit occasionally, then such a crime is condoned by the Supreme Lord on account of his being a great devotee. But then also it is specifically mentioned that he should not indulge in such crimes. So occasionally he does something that is prohibited, which is not of a very serious nature, then such things might be condoned by the Lord. Because ultimately he says, Lord Krishna says, Sadhureva samantavyaha samyak vyavasito hi saha kshipram bhavati dharmatma. Once he becomes a person who has surrendered to the Supreme Lord, automatically he will give up all those things. Because once he realizes that the Lord is his sole refuge and he has taken refuge in the Lord, he will not be able to commit crimes at all, because he will not be attracted to those things. So it is actually wrong to glorify crimes that have been our prohibited performance of prohibited acts in the garb of glorifying the nature of this grace of Supreme Lord. So that's why so a true devotee will say, when will you actually take me to you? When will I actually come to you and serve you? Kadaham Bhagavantam Narayanam Mama Kuladatam Mama Kuladaivatam Mama Kuladhanam Mama Bhogyam Mama Pitaram Mama Sarvam Sakshat Karavani Chakshusha. That's what he says. Ramanujacharya also says in his Gadya prayer. When am I going to have the divine vision of the Supreme Lord? That's what he says. When? Even Yamunacharya says, Kada Punashankaratanga Kada, when I am going to have the divine vision of all your divine forms, your divine ornaments, and your feet that is are adorned by divine ornaments, etc. So, so people will not actually, real devotees, real bhaktas or sharanagitas or prapannas, they will not want to stay in this world itself for a long time enjoying these worldly pleasures. So, பேத்துக்கு துவரிக்கையாவது இப்படி விஸ்வசித்து பேரு சித்தித்த போதோ காண்கிறோம் என்னிருக்கை காண்கிறோம் என்னிருக்கை அன்னிக்கே ஆக வைகுந்தங் காண்பதற்கென் மனமே மனம் ஏக என் மனமேகமென்னும் தாவியங்கொண்ட கடந்தாமரைகட்கே கூவி கொள்ளுங்காலம் இன்னும் குறுகாதோ என்கிறபடியே கிரமப்பிராப்தி பத்தாவல் பத்துகை. So here he quotes the verses of Nammalvar and says, when is that time going to come when I will attain your lotus feet? So he says, Kramaprapti pattamal padaruhai. So they are not interested in the Kramamukti. They are not interested in the regular procedure of attaining moksha. They are interested in attaining the Supreme Lord as early as possible. That doesn't mean, once again, that a person wants to die early, but it means that, so it has to be taken in a very balanced manner, that they want to die early or something like that. Because ultimately, it is mentioned, Nabhinandeta Maranam, Nabhinandeta Jeevitam, Kalameva Pratiksheta Nirdesham Bhritakoyata. You should not appreciate your living. You should not appreciate death also. A true devotee will actually wait for it to happen. The example given is Nirdesham Bhritakoyata, just as a servant waits for the orders of the master. Similarly, a true devotee will wait for it to happen. But out of the tvara or out of the urge to attain the Supreme Lord early, he can say, when are you going to take me? When are you going to take me? That means he conveys that he is ready to come to the Lord at any time. So these two, பேருத்தப்பாரின துணிந்திருக்கையும் பேர்த்துக்கு தரிக்கையும் ஆக இவை இரண்டாலும் உபாயோபேயாதிகாராபேட்சிதங்களான மகாவிஸ்வாசத்தையும் பிராப்தியத்வரையையும் சொல்லுகிறது. So these two aspects convey the two most important essentials of a true devotee, that is Mahavishwasa. He should have supreme confidence in the Lord that he will grant moksha to me. That is the first aspect, which is known as Mahavishwasa. And the fourth aspect is Prapyatvara, that is a sense of urgency in attaining the Supreme Lord. That is what is known as Prapyatvara. Then, Irikkum naal uhandarudina nilangalile pravalanaai gunanubhavaka inkariyangalile podupokahayum. Though our Purvacharyas and Alvars have always mentioned about the urgency, sense of urgency in attaining the Supreme Lord, they have never derided this life. Because even here, they have been engaged in the experience of the Supreme Lord. So that is one of the most essential characteristics, which is mentioned as Irikkum naal, when he is alive here. I will just give the literal translation, then I will explain it. Uhanda arulina nilangalide, uhanda arulina nilangal. What does it mean? The literal translation is what we call as chosen site or chosen location. Location chosen by whom? Location chosen by the Supreme Lord Narayana. So Uhande means he has taken a fancy for that location. And having taken a fancy, he has Arulinanam. He has blessed that location with his presence. That is why it is known as Divya Desha. A location which is divine in nature because it has been chosen by the Supreme Lord himself to stay there. So the Lord has chosen a particular place to bless that place with his presence. That is known as Divya Desha. Should be totally dedicated to these Divya Deshas. And having dedicated him himself, what should he do? Guna Anubhava Kainkariyangade Podupoka Hai. He should engage in the Guna Anubhava, enjoying the qualities of the Supreme Lord pertaining to each of the Divya Deshas or the Divya Deshas that he is inclined to. Both are fine. So some people may say, I want to have the enjoyment of the qualities of the Lord of Srirangam. Fine. Some person may say, I am totally dedicated to Lord Srinivasa of Tirumalai, Tirupati. I don't think about any other Lord. Fine. Or some people may, so even Nammalvar says, Ninna Adipira Nirka Mattattaivam Nadadire. So he propitiates and worships the Adinatha who was the presiding deity of Tirukkuruhur, that is Alvar Tirunahari. And he says, when Adinatha is there, I will not bow down to any other deity. That doesn't mean that he did not do so. But when he sees the greatness of Adinatha, he says, he is the best, I need not go elsewhere. So in a very, what we call as Swarasya, a very beautiful way of presenting things. When Goda Devi or Andal wanted to have the Supreme Lord himself as her husband, it is said that there was a Swayamvara. And all the lords of the 108 Divya Deshas, they flocked to Srivilliputturu to gain the hand of the revered Andal. And Andal chose none other than Lord Ranganatha. That is why he is known as Alahiya Manavalan. That means the most beautiful son-in-law of Lord Vishnu Chitta, because Andal was his daughter. So it is said in a very beautiful sense, that all the 108, the deities of all the 108 chosen saints, though all of them are Lord Narayana only, it's said in a very nice sense, in an enjoyable sense, that all of them became suitors to gain the hand of Goda Devi or Andal. And Lord Ranganatha won the contest because Andal chose Lord Ranganatha to be her husband. So one can choose many Divya Deshas, one can choose only one Divya Desha, because I have seen many Sri Vaishnavas who used to say, I will not go anywhere else from Tirunarayanapuram or Melkote to any other Lord, because my Shelva Pillai is enough for me. I will not go to any other Lord. Similarly, they say Srirangam, Kanchipuram or any other Divya Desha for that matter. So it's all a matter of one's own inclination and disposition. There is nothing wrong in any of these, because ultimately they are dedicated to the same Lord Narayana and nobody else. So, Pravananai, Guna Anubhava Kainkariyangade, Guna Anubhava and Kainkariya. So when Guna Anubhava happens, automatically Kainkariya will come. That is very important. Because in the Ramayana also, Lakshmana says, one might ask why Lakshmana was so fond of Rama, why did he perform so much of service to Rama? So Lakshmana says in the Ramayana, Ahamasya varo bhrata gunairdasya mupagataha. So when he introduces himself and Rama to Anjaneya or Hanuman in the Kishkinda Kanda, he says, Aham asya varo bhrata, I am his younger son, younger brother. And who am I? I have become his servant because of his great qualities. Gunaihi dasyam upagataha. So when there is a person whom you greatly admire, you try to serve him. That's an automatic human instinct. As I give an example, suppose there is a tennis player who wants to win Wimbledon or some US Open championship. He sees a great champion. Then he will say, let me do something. Can I carry your bag until the court or something like that? So it's a human instinct. Suppose there is a great Veena maestro and an ordinary person is practicing Veena. So the maestro will be the role model of that person. So automatically when that person, can I carry your bag please? Please give me the opportunity of at least carrying your bag, he will say. That means when a person appreciates the wonderful qualities of a great man or great person, whether it's a deity or a human being, automatically he will want to serve him. It's a human instinct, which is very good actually. So guna anubhava kainkaryangalile. So from guna anubhava automatically kainkarya will result. So guna anubhava kainkaryangale podupokahayam. So ultimately what will happen? He spends his entire time in enjoying the qualities of the Lord. He might listen to it or he might just over and over mentally think about the divine qualities and also do Kainkarya. As we all know, Kainkarya should be done as a Swayam Purushartha or Swatah Prayodhana, as an end in itself without expecting any return. So this is the literal meaning. It is being explained as follows. Paramapadattile poi Bhagavadanubhava Kainkaryangalai Pannuhayahira Petril Karai Nadava Nirkachedeyum Ishsharirattode Irikkum Naal Tanuhandavur Yengirapadiye Sarveshwaran Uhand Vartikkira Divya Deshangalile Kanniyor Arangameya Kachipper Mallai Endrum Manduhayahira Pravanyattayudayanai Avo Divya Deshangalile Nirkiravanudaya Kalyana Gunanubhavamum Adadiyaha Karanatrettalum Avan Vishayattire Pannuhira Kainkaryamume Kadakshepa Vishayamam Padi Irikkai. So I have covered almost all the aspects. He says, one important aspect I had left out. He says, Adadiyaha Karanatrettalum Avan Vishayattil Pannuhira Kainkaryamume. So Kainkarya can be done by means of three karanas, three means. So which are the karanas or the means? If you have to do something, we have to have these three means. That is kayena, vacha, manasa, manos, vak and kaya. That is mind, vak, speech and kaya, the body. So any activity that has to be performed by the human being involves these three karanas of these three means. That is the body, mind and speech. So these three are invariably involved in any activity. So without thinking, he cannot say something. Without saying, he cannot do something. He may not explicitly say it, but he has to think in terms of language. Even thinking occurs through the medium of language only. Beyond medium, beyond language, one cannot even think. It's a very great topic, how thinking occurs in human beings. And it has been researched and established that every person thinks based on his mother tongue only. So if you think, you will think in English. If I think, I will think in my mother tongue, Tamil. So my version or our version of Tamil. And if there is a person who is a Spanish person, he will think in terms of Spanish. So manas, vak and kaya. That is body, mind and speech. So karanatrayattalum avan vishayattile pannuhira kainkaryam. So you may serve this Lord mentally. You may chant the stotras, divya prabandhas, Vedic mantras, etc. Any sort of verbal propitiation, and also then physical worship or physical seva, physical service. So ultimately, a true Sri Vaishnava will end up doing nothing else but actually engaging in the service of the Lord by means of all three karanas, all three means, that is mind, body and speech. Here one more very important aspect is to be noted. So many a times we do something, a person may cook, a person may clean his house, he may do some very mundane things. So then how does this apply? So the uniqueness of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is somehow or the other connect everything to the Lord. Even if I am sweeping the house, you have to connect it and feel that it is the Kainkarya service of the Lord, because how do you do it? So even if a person, he has to answer his calls of nature, even that is, how do you connect it to the Lord? So if you don't answer your call of nature, you cannot live. So this life, this body is there, is to be maintained for the service of the Lord. So even that is in a way service of the Lord. Sweeping the house, that is also service of the Lord, because if you have to live, you need a house. And also in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya and all other Sampradayas also, the house is where the Supreme Lord actually lives. So in modern terminology, we have the most important aspect of a house is what we call in modern terms as puja room. But today, the Western influence is so much that in India, when new houses are built, there is no puja room at all, because in the Western concept, there doesn't exist such a, in the Western tradition, there doesn't exist such a concept. I may be corrected if I am wrong. But the most important place in the house, according to the Indian tradition, is the puja room, or the place where the Lord resides. And you perform all the religious activities and spiritual activities. So cleaning the house is also a kainkarya, or the service of the Lord. So that way, that is why even in Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, convert all your karmas to karma yoga. Then it doesn't bind you. Yes, sometimes the coil alvar will be in the house kitchen, because that is the place where it is most sacred, and also the offerings etc. have to be made. But once again, the concept of how a kitchen is built also is to be noted. In the Western tradition, which is blindly followed by all Indians today, including many people who are who are related to me also, they have this concept of the open kitchen. So there cannot be a puja room. Whereas earlier, until about 50 years back or 40 years back, there used to be the kitchen used to be little concealed, so that only certain people can enter there. And therefore, they used to have the koila in the kitchen. Anyway, so adadiyaha karanatrayattalum avan vishayattil pannuhira kainkaryame kalakshepa vishayamam padirikkai. So ultimately, even mundane things, ordinary things that, yes, of course, you're right. I am happy that you remember all these things. இப்படி இருக்கும் ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்கள் ஏத்தமறிந்து அறிந்திருக்கையாவது கீழ் சொன்ன yes absolutely right கீழ் சொன்ன இவ்வாகாரங்களெல்லாம் உடையராயிருக்கும் ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்களை கண்டால் இந்தளத்திலே தாமரை பூத்தா போலே இந்த விபூதியிலே இங்கனேயும் சிலர் உண்டாவதே என்று அவர்கள் வைபவத்தை அறிந்து அவர்களளவில் பிரீத்தியுக்தனாயிருக்கை கீழ் சொன்னவை எல்லாம் உண்டானாலும் உண்டாக அரிதாயிருப்பதோ இருப்ப தோன்றே இது. அதாவது இப்படி இருக்கும் ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்கள் ஏத்தமறிந்து அறிந்திருக்கை, that means he should have good knowledge of the greatness of Sri Vaishnavas who conform to the above qualities, who conform to the above aspects. If there are such Sri Vaishnavas, so he should actually arindirikkai. So he should actually have good knowledge, or he should realize the above mentioned qualities of Sri Vaishnavas who really have them. அதாவது கீழ் சொன்ன ஆகாரங்கள் எல்லாம் உடையராயிருக்கும் ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்களை கண்டால், ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்கள் கண்டால் இந்தளத்திலே, what is the meaning of இந்தளத்திலே? I could not mention. Can you just see the translation?
In the entire realm of samsara, they are as rare as lotuses blossoming on a burning log.
So that means lotus can bloom only in water. It can come in water only. It cannot actually bloom on a burning log. Similarly, such Sri Vaishnavas are very, very, very rare to come by, because it is a very difficult proposition to all these qualities. That is, Puram Mundana Pattakade Vasanayode Vidhayam, etc., etc. Some these 5 or 6 qualities which were mentioned. So it's encountering or coming across such a Sri Vaishnava is one of the most difficult things, just like encountering a lotus that has emanated from a burning log, or it has emanated not from water but something else. It's amazing, actually. It's an amazing thing which is very out of the ordinary. So, இந்தளத்திலே தாமரை பூத்தா போலே இந்த விபூதியிலே இங்கனே என்னும் சிலர் உண்டாவதே. So it's very, very rare that they have such people occur, or such people happen to be there in this world. என்று அவர்கள் வைபவத்தை அறிந்து, having known their greatness, அவர்கள் அளவில் பிரீத்தியுக்தனாயிருக்கை, having great affection for them, bhakti, having bhakti towards them, maniya vishaye preeti bhakti, having great affection for elderly people is what is known as bhakti. That is why he says preeti. அவர்களளவில் பிரீத்தியுக்தனாயிருக்கை, கீழ் சொன்னவை எல்லாம் உண்டானாலும் உண்டாக அரிதாயிருப்பதோ என்னிலே இது. Finally, he says it's very difficult to have great affection or great respect for another human being. So, Velakudi Varadacharya Swami, one of the greatest Upanyasakas in recent times, he used to very jokingly say, so Ramanujacharya, he gave 5-6 commandments towards the end of his appearance. So the first commandment was, as he said, Shribhashyam Vashikta Pravartipit. Study the Shribhashya and propagate it. If that is not possible, enjoy the immerse yourself in the Divya Prabandhas of the Alvas. Like that he says. He gives one by one. Then finally he says, Shri Vaishnavan Pakkaril Udangi Vartittal. If that is not possible, do this. If that is not possible, do this. Finally, if nothing is possible, serve a Shri Vaishnava. Be of service to a Shri Vaishnava. So one person was listening to it. He says, this is most difficult thing. Instead of that, I'll take the first option itself. Instead of engaging in service of a Shri Vaishnava, I will actually engage in the study and propagation of Shri Bhashya itself, which is more easier to do. That's what some person told. That means it is very difficult for a person, an ordinary person, to have respect for an elderly person. And having respect may also come, but serving a true Shri Vaishnava, because such Shri Vaishnavas are very rare to come by. Even if they are such Shri Vaishnavas, they are very rare to be recognized by other people. Even if they are recognized, engaging in service to such a Shri Vaishnava comes very, very rarely. Vakil Chunnavai Ellam Undanalum Undaha Varida Iripado Arada Iripatondire Ide. Then Tirumantratilam Dayatilam Niyatamahayam. That is the next characteristic that we will do in the next session. So today I will conclude because that requires a lot some detailed explanation. So I will not go into that now. So we'll conclude here. I am happy that after how many weeks we have started once again?
I think it may be about a month, 1 month.
Oh, so many days. 3 weeks. 3 weeks we had a gap.
I think the last one was July 24th. Today is the 28th of August, so almost 1 month.
Okay. Anyway, let us hope by God's grace we continue and reach the conclusion. Yes.
Swami, I have a question, Swami.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was listening to Andavan Ashram Gopala Swami De Parvakote Gopala Swami, our Pundit. He was telling regarding Paduka Sahasrapati. Listening. There he says he differentiates between Swargam and Moksham. Is it correct? So Swargam is where we can come back. My understanding is Swargam, you go, we after a while we'll come back again. Swargam. Moksham is permanent.
So in the Shastras, there are certain statements which equate Sarga and Moksha. That is one thing it has to be noted. But in the Upanishads, it specifically states, Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. In the Kathopanishad, it specifically states this. So Swarga is a place where you enjoy the stay there because it gives you all the enjoyments or pleasures. So it's like staying in a 5-star hotel. I'm just giving a very mundane example, ordinary example. So when you enter the 5-star hotel, you pay about $100,000. Then they take care of all your needs. They supply breakfast, they supply food, they supply any other thing, and you can enjoy the swimming pool, you can enjoy some billiards or something if you play, or a tennis court or something like that where you play tennis. So as soon as the money you have deposited is exhausted,
okay,
they will say either you deposit more money or you check out of the hotel. So Swarga is equated to that, is akin to something like that, where Tetam Bhuktva Swargalokam Vishalam Kshine Punye Martyalokam Vishanti. So until the punya in your account is intact or it is not exhausted, until then you can stay in Swarga. But once that is exhausted, Martyalokam Vishanti, they come back to the human world. So once again they have to start.
Okay.
So therefore Swarga is impermanent, it's temporary, whereas moksha is permanent.
Oh.
So that is the popular belief, and it is quite well substantiated in the Shastras also.
Dhanyasmi Swami. Thank
Swami, same thing for Naraka, I suppose. You go to Naraka, and then when your papas are finished, you come back to the middle plane.
Yes.
Even though in Dvaita Vedanta they have some idea of the Madhvas have got some idea of staying in Naraka forever.
Is it? I have not heard. Where is it mentioned? I would be interested to know where they have mentioned it.
Yeah, okay. They have quoted Bhagavad Gita also on this.
Oh, that is Kshipam Yadasrama Shubhava Asuri Shveva Yonishu Asurim Yonimapanna Muda Janmani Mamaprapyaiva Kaunteya Mrityu Samsara Vartani or something is there. It's all very difficult to say. If they have interpreted it, fine. That is also an interpretation. There are several interpretations by several people. So we consider it as an interpretation. That's all. But I would be happy to know where they have specifically mentioned it, in which work, etc., if you have come across it.
So I was going to ask also, when you talked about serving the Vaishnavas, we should serve the Vaishnavas. I think this is very important in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, not only Bhagavat Kainkaryam, but Bhagavata Kainkaryam. And when you were mentioning about in the house, there is the Koil Alwar sometimes is in the kitchen. And I noted that you have 2 kitchens in your house in Melkote. And so one of those kitchens is for serving even the non-Vaishnavas. Or the persons who are not following strictly the certain acharas. Am I right?
No. My father used to give a very detailed account of how 2 kitchens came there. So when my grandmother got married from she belonged to Mysore, and when my grandfather married her, she had the habit of having coffee. So coffee was totally prohibited in those days, because it was, though it is a very totally herbal drink, there is nothing wrong in that actually, but they say it contains caffeine, which is a sort of poison. And so it was considered to be like an intoxicant. So coffee was totally prohibited when my grandmother became a daughter-in-law of our house. That is probably in 1920s or something like that. So at that time, coffee was strictly prohibited. So earlier, but my grandmother was having the habit of, because she belonged to Mysore, a city, which was relatively I don't know whether we should use, but within quotes, advanced. So it was not allowed to be, coffee was not allowed to be prepared in the kitchen at all. So my grandmother used to go to there used to be a bathroom, and behind the bathroom there used to be a place where water used to be heated for taking bath. So in that, of course, there was no question of having this LPG or gas, liquid petroleum gas or something like that. So all they had was only these firewood stoves. So they used to heat water for taking bath. So in that stove, my grandmother used to heat coffee and then take it. So later, after some time, coffee is not, even now in the main kitchen where the offerings are prepared to offer to the Lord, coffee is not prepared there. Even in many houses, still that practice is prevalent. So they have a separate stove and separate vessels to prepare coffee. So since our house was very particular in following the orthodox principles, so then my grandfather said, "We should, if you want to prepare coffee, you do it in a separate kitchen." And even today in our house, the male folk do not have coffee. My father never used to drink coffee. Even now, I don't even touch coffee. Even I don't like the smell also. So the females, that is my mother and later generations, the women used to have coffee, but not the men folk. So that is why it's not a question of Vaishnava serving Vaishnavas and non-Vaishnavas. And one more thing is, after the offering is made to the Lord, then it can be served to anybody. It's not a question of non-Vaishnavas not being served. So we serve even people who belong to other castes also. Food is given to anybody. But some restrictions like we don't use tables and other things. They have to sit on the floor and have it or something like that. Those restrictions continue to be there. So non-Vaishnavas should not be served. There is no such rule. They can be offered prasadam. There is nothing wrong in that.
So I remember your father distinctly told me that he said that people have told him that he is very good at making coffee, that he has made good coffee. But he says he doesn't know if it's true or not because he never tasted coffee. But he used to prepare and give for guests because offering coffee to guests is ubiquitous in Sri Vaishnavas, in households in South India, let's say, amongst even Sri Vaishnavas.
Even I do that because when my mother was not in the position to prepare her own coffee, I used to prepare and give it to her. And even now when somebody comes, when my wife is busy with cooking or other things, we supposed to do that. And in Melkote, all the male folk are experts in cooking because in Melkote, especially in the temple, you don't have the concept of professional cooks. So all people, even people who are scholars or who are well-to-do, they also engage in preparing prasadam for the Lord. That's a tradition in Melkote especially. And Swayamacharya Purushas are supposed to know cooking because when they tour, they are not supposed to have food prepared by others. So my father used to say, the first thing a Swayamacharya Purusha has to know is how to cook. He used to jokingly say. In Tamil Nadu nowadays and in many other places, cooks are, though they belong to the Sri Vaishnava community, their practices are very unworthy. So generally, even today, people like us do not consume food prepared by professional cooks because they don't follow certain very important values and they are given to several bad habits. So that is how it is. Yeah, of course, we don't eat at weddings, etc. So unless it's even in the Divya Deshas, even in some temples in the cities, I don't know, you might be well aware of the fact. So it should have a Divya Desha Sambandha. Sometimes there are several temples in cities which are affiliated to Divya Deshas. Affiliation is a very modern word. But then what they do is, some person wants to have a new temple in some place like Bangalore or Mysore or any other place. Then what they will do is, they will have a new Shatari prepared. And they will do the Shatari Pratishtha in the Divya Desha. For example, they do it in Melkote. And then they place the Shatari near the feet of the Lord and then give it to the person. So he takes it to the new temple and keeps it there. That way the contact with the Divya Desha is established. And then the elderly people will consume the Tirtham and Prasadam in the temple if it's prepared according to the norms. But if the new temple does not have the Divya Desha Sambandha or the Divya Desha affiliation, then elderly people will not consume Tirtham. They would not actually. Of course, now everything has become so diluted. It's not an issue at all. But this is a very nice practice that any new temple that is consecrated has to have the Divya Desha Sambandha. So there is the tradition of doing what is known as Shatari Parigraha. A new Shatari is prepared and it is the Pratishtha is done in the temple Yagashala by the Archaks themselves. Then they place it for a few days near the feet of the Lord, so that the power of the Lord comes to that Chetari also, and that Chetari is carried to the new temple and kept there. And of course, it is offered to all the people. It is placed on the head of all the people. So that way, the Divyadesh Sambandha is initiated for the new temples also.
And speaking of the Divyadeshams, it is the practice of many Sri Vaishnavas to visit 106 Divyadeshams,
Yes.
and people will ask you how many you have been to, how many I have been to. Is it so important that we should go to all of these Divyadeshams, or as you said, some people?
Because it is nice, see, to know the greatness of a Divyadesha also is great. And when you visit there, you will have a person who is spiritually inclined will have many new experiences. So it's very enjoyable actually. So for example, when we go to Navatirupati, Advar, Tunnari, all the 9 Divyadeshas we can visit in one day. Now, earlier it used to be very difficult. There were no roads and you had to walk all the distance in the scorching heat. Nowadays, you have air-conditioned vehicles. Roads are good. So, one day you can cover all the Divyadeshas. It's a very nice thing that has happened now. And it's really enjoyable because each temple has its own uniqueness. And even for people who want to have these worldly attainments. So now, for example, the Navatirupati in the around in and around Advar, they are equated with Navagrahas. So if you are having some problem with the Saturn, they will say you go and visit this Divyadesha.
So even the Ahobalam Matjir is associating the Navanarasimhas of Ahobalam with Navagrahas now, trying to get people interested in that. Because people are interested in Navagrahas. So to try to get them interested in the Lord.
It is like you offer something that is attractive to the people and then wean them away towards the Lord. So if it is done with that intention, then it is fine. Because people are 99.99% or 99.9999, how much ever 99 you add, it's fine, are interested in attaining worldly things, objects only. Only a very, very, very minuscule percentage of people is interested in real moksha, liberation, or whatever you want to call it. Even Lord Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaya. Among thousands, only one person wants to really attain the Supreme Lord. So it's quite. Even when we ourselves think deep and contemplate, how much am I inclined towards moksha? It's a very difficult question to answer. So even, for example, if you ask me 99% of the time I am inclined, involved in worldly activities, to be very honest. So am I really desirous of attaining moksha? I may say, oh, I let it come, I am happy if it comes. But am I really having tvara, having the sense of urgency? It's a very difficult question to answer. To be very honest, I should say I don't have that sense of urgency. Or 99, as I said, most of the people do not have it. Okay. So I think any other question? I think we have discussed sufficiently. I am also very happy. Thank you very much. Ched Raman Jetyesha Chatura Chaturakshari Kamavastham Prapadyante Jantavo Hantamadusha Punyam Bhoja Vikasaya Papadvan Takshayaya Cha Shrimanavira Bhumu Ramam Jadivakaraha Krita Virinchari Nirankusha Vibhutayaha Ramanujapadam Bhoja Samashrena Shalinaha.